church exists to glorify God by making authentic disciples of Jesus Christ who love and worship Him in all they do. Well, all right. Welcome to Beyond the Pulpit. My name's Derek Wadley, and I am joined here by Luke Cookie. Say hi, Luke.
Hey, everyone.
And Dan Rude. Say hi, Dan.
Hello, everyone.
And we're going to take the next 2 weeks here and look at 4 reasons why you should believe in the resurrection of Jesus. So we're going to look at 4 basic reasons. We're not going to make overly complicated apologetic arguments where A plus B plus C equals Z somehow. But we're going to look at very basic arguments. Why are we looking at basic arguments?
Well, I don't know. Basic or just good reasons to believe in the resurrection. I think the Bible actually supplies good reason to believe that Jesus did in fact rise on the third day, as attested to by the Scriptures. And so we don't need to go too far to look. And so the Bible itself, especially like the Gospels, when you think about the Gospel of Mark, for example, it's very interesting how Mark is really fast-paced.
Super fast.
And then all of a sudden he gets to the Passion and he really slows down. Mm-hmm. And all the Gospels have lots of details and facts in them that give support to the resurrection. And then obviously after in the epistles, and we looked at last week, 1 Corinthians 15 and others. So we want to give just 4, maybe 5. We'll see how.
Yeah, we'll see. We said 4 because that's what's written down now, but you never know.
You never know. There's a lot of reasons.
It could
There's
be
more
15
reasons
by
than
the
this.
time we get to next week.
So I think we're going to do a couple this week, right? And then a couple next week is the plan.
That's right. That's right. So what's the first reason to believe the resurrection?
The first reason is that Jesus died and was buried. You might be thinking, wait a minute. How does that prove the resurrection?
Well, first, you can't have a resurrection without a death.
That's right.
So that's...
In the Bible, Gospels spend a lot of time actually confirming Jesus died and was buried to help show that he was for sure put to death. So, Dan, you want to read the first passage we're going to look at?
So John chapter 19, verse 31 says, "Since it was the preparation day, the Jews did not want the bodies to remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a special day. They requested that Pilate have the men's legs broken and their bodies be taken away." And so the New Testament adds lots of detail when it comes to establishing the death of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of reasons this matters, but one of them is that people might be tempted to think that the resurrection of Jesus, it wasn't a resurrection. It's just that he was beaten. He maybe looked like he was dead, and then he was able to get out of the tomb. And so
he played dead like a possum.
He played dead. That's probably I mean, if you would have gone through all of that, he probably would have been knocked out. He would have lost consciousness, and they maybe they just thought he was dead. But that would be. If someone said, this woman rose from the dead, my first inclination would simply be to say, well, they weren't really dead. Yes, right. That would be the most natural way to think about a resurrection. And so the New Testament establishes the fact that Jesus died, and it says that the Jews wanted the 3 men on the cross to be taken down, and so they went and broke. They requested that Pilate break these men's legs. And so the way you would survive on the cross is that you would push up on your legs and
to get a breath.
And then if your legs were broken, then you would suffocate. But Jesus' legs were not broken. Verse 32, "So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first man and of the other one who had been crucified with him. When they came to Jesus, they did not break his legs, since they saw that he was already dead." Okay, so now you might think, maybe they thought he was dead, but he wasn't really dead. Well, they would not have allowed, Roman soldiers would not have allowed Jesus to be taken off the cross without being dead. And so they had a way to make sure the subject was dead. Verse 34, "But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once blood and water came out." And so they take a spear, ram it through his side. That act alone would have killed Jesus for sure if he wasn't dead. So they're just making sure. They're just double checking that he is dead.
And that separation of blood and water.
Separation of blood and water.
Indicator of death.
It's the sign that he is dead. So they have confirmation from Roman soldiers that he is dead, and John was there.
And it's important to note, like, when we're talking about Roman soldiers here, this isn't like your mall security guard.
It's not like ROTC.
Yeah. It's not what it is. Like, these are like professional killers.
Yeah, that's what
they know
do.
exactly. They're executioners would be the right word. And so they know exactly what they're doing. They know when someone was dead or someone was alive. And so you have the testimony of the soldiers and the testimony of, John.
John, he says in verse 35, he who saw this has testified so that you may believe. His testimony is true, and he knows that he's telling the truth. John's like, I was there. So I saw this. I saw this happen. Jesus is dead. And then he adds these details. Verse 36, for these things happened so that the scripture would be fulfilled. Not one of his bones will be broken. Also, another scripture says, they will look on the one they have pierced. And so John, I'm sure John did not understand these details at the time.
Probably not.
But even the fact that Jesus' legs were not broken was a fulfillment of prophecy. So Jesus definitely died.
Yep.
Yes.
He died.
And I think it's interesting, not that you have to look outside of the testimony of the scriptures, but this is actually a fact that is really unanimously accepted by other historians as well, inside Christianity and outside Christianity. And so you can find many people like Josephus and Tacitus. Thank you. Golly, man. That attest to the fact that Jesus was actually put to death. He was crucified.
That's right. And Muslims will say Jesus, he did not die. He swooned.
What a good
theory.
Yeah, what a good word.
Yeah.
Swoon.
Yeah, and I've heard the argument where they say they thought he was dead. They took him off the cross. They laid him in the tomb. The tomb was cold. So the tomb was cold. And, And while he was in that cold,
like in a morgue where he's like,
like a drawer.
he was
iced up.
He was iced up, and then that allowed him to heal and come back to life. I'm like, no.
He died. It's like kind of like that
on the
movie
cross.
called Universal Soldier, where they would ice him back to life. Jean-Claude Van Damme, come on, baby. I don't know how that got in here, but anyway,
it's in.
It's in.
Okay, so Jesus died. He died.
Dead.
Okay, so how does that prove the resurrection? Okay, well, let's keep going. He died and he was buried.
Yep.
Okay, that is a detail that Paul emphasizes in 1 Corinthians 15, where he says, I pass on to you of what is most important, that Jesus, he was crucified,
died,
and
was buried.
He was buried. He was buried according to the scriptures. And so you think, well, of course he was buried, but this was not the common practice for those who were crucified.
Yep.
If you were crucified as a criminal, you would typically, your body would be taken down and you'd be thrown into either a mass grave or you'd be thrown into a ditch, or you would be thrown into a pile and you'd be burned. They'd just get rid of the bodies. And that makes sense because dead bodies stink. And you want to get rid of the stench. And so they didn't want to deal with this.
Was it like Lazarus? He stinketh.
But Lord, he stinketh. And so the common practice would be for criminals to be taken down and thrown away. But this did not happen to Jesus. In verse 38, John 19:38, after this, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might remove Jesus' body. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and took his body away. What a moment for Joseph of Arimathea to take the body of Jesus down.
Well, and what a time to kind of come out more publicly about your relationship to Christ.
Jeez.
Interesting.
Yeah, taking Jesus' body down. Verse 39, Nicodemus, who had previously come to him at night, also came, bringing a mixture of about 75 pounds of myrrh and aloes. They took Jesus' body and wrapped it in linen cloth with fragrant spices, according to the burial custom of the Jews. There was a garden in the place where he was crucified. A new tomb was in the garden. No one had yet been placed in it. They placed Jesus there because of the Jewish day of preparation, and since the tomb was nearby. And so Jesus is taken down off the cross, and then they gave him a Jewish burial.
Yep.
And Proper burial. 75 pounds of aloes and myrrh, and he's put into the tomb. And they have to do this quickly because the Sabbath is coming up, and they can't work on the Sabbath, so they got to do this somewhat quickly. They put him in the tomb. And it's so interesting because this detail of being placed in a somewhat well-known tomb actually helps to establish the legitimacy of the resurrection.
That's right. No, they didn't hide where it was. It's like the garden by where he was crucified. Like there's the tomb.
There it is.
Of a wealthy man who was part of the Sanhedrin.
Was part of the Sanhedrin.
Like with enough influence that he could approach Pilate. Like it wasn't, it was like his wife had to send a note to him to like not have anything to do. But like it seems like he just like approached
he went and
Pilate
talked with him.
and talked with him.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the reasons this is so big is because if Jesus' body was thrown into a pile of dead bodies, then 3 days later, if the claim was that Jesus was alive, there'd be no way to validate that. There'd be no way to produce the body because bodies, if you have a bunch of dead bodies that after a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, it'd be very difficult to know what body is which, right? And it's gross to think about, but
that's reality.
But the claim that the tomb is empty would hold no meaning, you know. So this establishes, helps to establish the resurrection of Christ.
Yep.
Yeah, and just the weight, the 75 pounds of everything. After everything Jesus had gone through, even in like a weakened state, it's like 75 pounds is a lot of weight. I don't care who you are. That's like to have it laid on top of you after you've been whipped and beaten, and hung on a cross for hours. Like that's just a lot of weight to hold you down. So Jesus died and he was put in a tomb, and that this sets up the resurrection, which gets us to reason number 2.
Reason number 2 here, the tomb was empty.
Yes.
Discovered empty 3 days later on the first day of the week. One passage, the Gospels all obviously record this, but I think, Dan, you have Matthew 27 or...
I'm flipping there.
You're flipping there right now.
Turn into Matthew.
This is one of those things to where we talked about last week. When all 4 Gospels talk about something and they describe it, it's like, slow down, pay attention.
That's right. Yeah, a lot here.
That's exactly right. Okay, Matthew chapter
27. 62.
62. It says, the next day, which followed the preparation day, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember that while this deceiver was still alive, he said, 'After 3 days I will rise again.' So give orders that the tomb be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may come, steal him, and tell the people he has been raised from the dead. And the last deception will be worse than the first. Take guards," Pilate told them. "Go and make it as secure as you know how." And they went and secured the tomb by setting a seal on the stone and placing the guards.
It's a big deal. Big deal.
Why is it a big deal?
Well, it's a good question. I think one, so when you think about the tomb here, one of the ideas would be is the disciples, if the tomb is empty, the thought is, well, maybe somebody took his body and they're pretending it's empty. Yep. But here, it seems like that claim would be totally invalidated, because what you have is the Pharisees who knew what he was saying, is that after 3 days I'll rise again. And so to make sure the tomb was secure and that the disciples couldn't come and steal the body, is what Matthew says that the Pharisees were talking about. They asked Pilate to have a guard of soldiers at the tomb. So you have the Roman seal on the tomb, and then the guards. And the Roman seal, if someone was to break that seal, would be death. If you think about Roman guards, again, these aren't just anybody who kind of could hold a spear or something standing in front of the tomb. These are trained military men.
Talking like Navy SEAL.
These
are
like
experts.
And the understanding is there would have been 16 of these soldiers or so standing at the tomb.
Yep.
And so the idea that the disciples, let alone anybody, would steal the body of Jesus, thus claiming the tomb is empty, is a bit. It's just a far cry. It's ludicrous.
Yeah. So this destroys the stolen body theory.
Yeah.
Yep. It also helps to dispel the wrong tomb, like the
wrong
tomb,
Yep.
because it's like I mean, again, Rome, notoriously like meticulous and in terms of all of its military operations, would have placed the soldiers at the right tomb.
Yeah,
like that's not a mistake that Rome would have made.
We know it's the Joseph of Arimathea, his tomb, brand new tomb,
Garden
where he's
right
at.
next to the
Go
site.
there.
It's
Seals on the tomb. The guards are in front of the tomb. So so the stolen theory idea is preposterous.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And and I would have, if I was living back then, it's hard to know exactly what I would have thought, but probably if I heard the claim, if I heard the claim, someone has risen from the dead, my first inclination would be to say, well, they never died.
Yep.
Second, I would have said someone took the body.
Yep.
Third, I would have probably said maybe they have the wrong tomb.
Yep.
You know, if the tomb is empty, maybe you just have the wrong tomb.
Right. Yep.
right.
But Jesus died. That's an established fact. Next, the tomb is empty. They didn't steal it. The
Couldn't
body,
have stealed it.
They could not have stolen the body because you have the Roman soldiers there with the Roman seal. So they didn't steal it. And it's not the wrong tomb. And so the Pharisees have no idea what they're doing here when they say, put the Roman guard there, because what they're doing by sending the Roman guard is that they are more clearly establishing the right tomb.
Yeah, isn't it just wild?
It's counterproductive.
Sovereignty of God here.
Sovereignty, I know. Yeah, you can fight against him.
Because what they're saying, you know, if you're the Pharisees, makes a lot of sense. They're like, hey, we know what he's claimed and what his disciples will probably claim, and so we need to make sure, you know, because they're trying to stamp this stuff out about Jesus as much as possible. Yeah, they don't want anybody following him, and so naturally they're like, hey, we need to make sure this body stays in this tomb, like it stays here.
That's a good plan.
It is a good plan. I mean, like, if I'm them,
if you're an enemy of Jesus, that makes perfect sense.
If I'm them, that's what I would do. You know, like, why not? Like, totally.
Yeah. So, but the testimony of the scriptures is that the third day, on the third day in the morning, the tomb was found empty.
Yep.
So the body is missing.
And who found it is actually a very compelling piece of evidence.
Yeah, John 20 here.
Yeah.
On the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early while it was still dark, and she saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. And so she went running to Simon Peter and to the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said to them, they've taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they've put him. Or if you look at Mark, is it 15, when he says in, verse 16, Mark 16, when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, Salome bought spices so they could go and anoint him. Very early in the morning on the first day of the week, when they went to the tomb at sunrise, they were saying to one another, who will roll away the stone from the entrance to the tomb for us? Looking up, they noticed the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. And when they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in white robes sitting there on the right side, and they were alarmed. Don't be alarmed, he told them. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who is crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they put him? But go tell his disciples, Peter, he is going ahead of you to Galilee, and you will see him there, just as he told you. Now, why does it matter that these women, so they're going back to the tomb because they want to, I think it seems like the burial was rushed. It was not able to be fully kind of done the right way, carried out the right way, and the Sabbath was approaching, so they took the Sabbath off. That was Saturday. Now this is Sunday morning, and they go to the tomb, and they find the tomb is empty. Now, why does it matter that it's the ladies who found the tomb?
Well, in Jewish culture, this is another one of those details that all four Gospels share. And in Jewish culture, Matthew emphasizes this a lot. It's probably the most Jewish of the four Gospels. It's women's testimony wasn't admissible in court or in any setting. So if you're going to make up a story about a risen Savior, you're not going to include the detail that it was women who specifically, like Jesus' mom and like Mary Magdalene, who, the scriptures kind of give us some idea that she probably, like even before she started following Jesus, had like not a great reputation in the city. There's a lot of
Mary Magdalene? Yeah, she had seven demons. She had seven demons.
Yeah. There's a lot of people's view of Mary is built on the Chosen, and so it's like read the scriptures. The Chosen is fine, but
she had demons.
But she had demons. Like she was like And it's like, those are not probably especially the two women that you would choose.
Okay, who are we going to pick to be the first witness of the resurrected Christ?
Yeah.
The demon-possessed woman.
Yes.
You know,
Do you know if I'm writing the story, who am I picking? Who's going to go? It's Peter, probably.
So Peter, or like Joseph of Arimathea,
or somebody,
or someone of some
rapport.
Yeah. But it's like,
if I was Jesus, I would appear right in front of Pilate. I'm just kidding. Like Pilate
on the judgment seat of John Pilate's judgment seat.
The judge's bench. I'd be like, okay, so Pilate,
right
I'm coming
next to
for
me.
you. Okay, Caiaphas, I'm coming for you.
yeah. It's like Pilate or Caiaphas for, it's the Sanhedrin or Rome. I don't know.
So it is a really important fact here, because this would not have been, if his story was made up, no one at that time period would have put these ladies in the position to find Jesus.
Nope.
And so it helps dispel this myth that somehow this was just a story that was the body got somehow taken, stolen, misplaced, and then these people come and the tomb is empty, and so it dispels this idea that they're just making this up, like that it was some just kind of. They knew Jesus said that he was going to rise 3 days later, and so they just kind of continued to carry out the story or Jesus' claim in order to, in some ways, give purpose to their life and to continue the claims of Jesus, teachings of Jesus. Mm-hmm. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and if Peter or John or whoever, if they were the first to see the resurrected Christ, I think what ends up happening to the story is that the story just becomes predictable, and it turns into it's turned into legend.
Yeah,
but one of the shocking details of the New Testament when it comes to the resurrection of Christ is the absence of shocking, alarming, incredible details. It's like the way a legend grows is that it gets bigger and bigger and more ridiculous over time.
That's right.
But the way the New Testament reads is that it reads like a historical account. It reads like, this is what happened. They showed up at the tomb, and you think, why are they there? Well, they're there for the same reason that people go to the graves of their loved ones.
Yeah. Right.
Put flowers on the graves to mourn over the loss of someone they loved.
Especially when it's so fresh. I mean, it's like, and it was so tragic.
Yeah.
And just being there, it helps you to grieve. And so it makes perfect sense to me.
Well, they spent years and years with Jesus and this whole idea and their minds of the Messiah and changed their lives. Now it's all over.
It makes perfect sense because on the Sabbath, they couldn't go. So on the Sabbath, they're not allowed to do it. So the first opportunity they have to go to the tomb of Jesus, and even you see the what they're concerned about as they go to the tomb is they're like, how are we going to move the stone?
How are we going to get in?
But aren't there times where you're like, I don't know how we're going to solve that problem. That's a problem, but we'll just figure it out when we get there. I think that's what they're thinking. We just got to get there.
Yeah.
And so they go there, and then the testimony is that the stone is rolled away.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then there's an angel, or there, depending on your account, two angels. And you
tell them he's risen.
He's risen. He's alive. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
And they did what anyone would do. They run away and they go tell people.
I know.
I mean, like, what would
right.
They're like astonished. They're amazed. Like, what? They're alarmed. This is the words that Mark uses, and then they run and they go tell the disciples.
Yeah, what else
Matthew
would you
says
do?
they depart quickly with fear and great joy to run and tell the disciples.
That's so good.
One of my favorite details, though, is John's the disciple that Jesus loved, and Peter ran, and I was faster.
Beat him.
It's like,
competition. It's good.
Yeah, and something about these first two facts or first two reasons to believe in the resurrection, that Jesus died, namely on the cross. That's a historical fact.
Yep.
He was dead on the cross and buried in a tomb of a rich man, Joseph of Arimathea, and that on the third day the tomb was empty. And you might be listening to this and say, "Well, this is nothing revolutionary," and that's correct. That has been this has been part of the gospel story for the last 2,000 years.
Yep.
And I think what happens in culture today is because people are familiar with these details, they're throwaway details. And we think they don't have much apologetic power, but they actually have tremendous apologetic power because what these first two facts establish is that the common explanations for the resurrection of Christ, or the defeater arguments for the resurrection, the case against the resurrection, those reasons are destroyed by these simple facts.
Yep.
Because you have to explain what happened to the body of Jesus.
Yep.
You have to, and so
like even I read, people don't dispute the tomb was empty.
they don't dispute it.
No.
That's not the dispute.
And so Dr. William Lane Craig, he spent a lot of time studying the case for the resurrection. He says, I think he says, I should check myself here, but I think he says there are about 25 really compelling reasons to believe in the resurrection. But these first two, that Jesus died and was buried, and that the tomb was found empty, he says these are two of the four most compelling reasons to believe in the resurrection of Christ. And so when people kind of throw these facts away, they dismiss these facts, we shouldn't dismiss them.
Not at all.
We should stand by them and say, wow, these are clearly recorded in the Bible and in history. They're affirmed by historians. They're affirmed by scholars. And they give us good reasons to believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. William Lane Craig wrote a very short book called "Did Jesus Rise from the Dead?" I think you can get it for free, like online as an ebook. So it's like the way he builds that argument in that is very compelling.
It's compelling.
Very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah, I think Gary Habermas just did a full what is it called? The volume set of Case of the Resurrection, basically. He's been studying that for many, many, many years, and he's finally, in one sense, he's put it together in a book, and they called it like a tomb, or there's like a specific name when you write that extensive of material, that many books. Anyway, and so there are so many compelling reasons to believe that Jesus has risen from the dead. And these are just a few of them. And but we need to know, we need to study, we need to read what the scriptures say, because the whole essence of Christianity is built on the resurrection of Christ. And as we'll see next week, it's some of the most compelling facts of the resurrection are just the changed lives of these men and women. And the extent, they're willing to go to death. And if they made this up, why would you ever be willing to sacrifice your life?
Totally.
That's right.
So, totally. And so one encouragement maybe for everybody listening is with roommates or friends or your kids or whatever, just ask them, ask the question, why should we believe in the resurrection? And this Easter season for our family devotions, we've been just going through the resurrection, not John, but 1 Corinthians 15, and we've been talking about the resurrection. And so my plan is to just ask my kids, why should you believe in the resurrection? And they know these details, but I don't think they understand the power of these details. And so this will be a good opportunity to help instruct our kids or have good conversations with friends or family about the basis for our belief in the resurrection of Christ.
That's right.